Welcome back to the Spiritual Business Blueprint podcast. I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and today's episode is titled Holding Space, Support Others Without Absorbing Their Energy. Hi, I'm Tracy Ann Rose, and I help high-achieving spiritual women of color entrepreneurs break through income ceilings and reconnect with their intuition without burning down their business. Today, we're talking about maintaining energetic boundaries no matter what niche you have, and even if you're a recovering people pleaser. Be sure to stay to the end because I'll be sharing how you can double your income from last year. All right, so I want to first talk about what it's like to hold space for others without taking it on. In my experience, I learned Reiki, started out as a beginner I believe we started in 2013 or 2014, and I became a Reiki master teacher pretty quickly. But what I realized as I was performing or channeling Reiki through my hands onto other people was this desire to take their pain away. And it had always been something that I had felt. And a lot of healers, we feel that, right? We want to be in the spotlight. We want to impact a lot of people in order to help them heal, in order to help them notice damaging the subconscious patterns, especially if you're a healer, especially if you're a coach. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You probably grew up as the friend that all of your friends brought their issues to, whether it was a bad relationship or whether or not they should tell a friend about something that they felt uncomfortable about. You were that landing board. And a lot of times when that's our childhood, and we probably have a lot of that happening on some level at home where we feel like we need to protect or parent our parents in order to have a copacetic environment, we can then bring that into energy work or professional coaching services or any sort of service provider work. And that was what I started to notice when I became a Reiki master teacher. When I was finally certified, I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to be able to let all of this go, where I felt so called to be so hands-on with people and check on them afterwards. I mean, it was to the point in my life where that was such a pattern for me that, I was always the friend on the playground to the kids who others neglected. And then even into college, I studied psychology. I got a degree in psychology, but I knew I could never use it because I was so cognizant of the fact that I would not have the strength to release the client without having some sort of enmeshment or being worried about their well-being. It took me a long time to really understand and create a framework that worked for me and that worked for my clients, and stopping taking on the energy. Because when we take on other people's energy, it is draining. It is exhausting. You find yourself thinking about them on your off time and worrying about them. And a lot of times it can come out as overgiving, overstepping our boundaries. So maybe moving an appointment to a slot where we don't actually have the time or the space or the capacity to serve that person, but feeling obligated to do so. You might also see that where you're simply feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm never giving enough value. So you might give away your coaching services for free, especially when you're in the early stages. In the middle stages, you might just keep adding things to your coaching offers, even though you may not actually have the capacity to complete those new deliverables on a time basis that works for your energy. And then, of course, when you get to the six-figure place, oftentimes I've noticed this as overworking. It's this idea of like, no, I'm just being high touch. And it's like, you're not being high touch. You're being out of touch with your own physical body and your own physical needs. and you're enmeshed in that other person's energy. So if you're struggling with those issues, or another big one, another big identifier of if you're taking on other people's energy is if you're worried about selling because you're afraid people can't afford the price, that is enmeshment. So these are all good things to notice to identify, okay, do I need stronger energetic boundaries? If you are noticing any of these things where you feel like you have to constantly accommodate your clients, or maybe you don't feel comfortable correcting your team or giving your team consequences whenever they make a mistake, things like that, this is for you. So I created a set of things that work for me in order to stop me from taking on the energy of my clients, especially after a particularly heavy session, and also how to release that energy if we do have a heavy session. So first things first, set intentions. You always want to set intentions. So how I do this, as you know, from my background as a Reiki practitioner and just somebody who's very sensitive to energy, I've picked up a lot of different things along the way. And for me, it is always, I take the time to personally rub my hands together. That helps me to generate a certain level of energy. And then I ask for permission. I ask for permission if I'm doing energy healing on a human being. I ask, and even animals and trees, you can ask out loud if it's someone that you're doing this in person with. You can ask psychically if they're in a remote place, but ask, do I have permission to enter your energetic field? Listen, scent for the yes. Once you have that consent, then you can move forward and you set the intention that this healing session is for their highest and best good. Now, this may all sound very like, duh, Tracy Ann, like I know this, but this intention setting is important because it sets it apart from you. A lot of times what happens when we get emotionally or energetically enmeshed, where we start feeling the other person's symptoms, things like that, it's because we don't set the intention for solely their healing. There's an egoic part of ourselves that's telling us, oh my gosh, you got to perform. Make sure you do it right. Don't say anything stupid, or don't say anything that they don't resonate with, or they won't take you seriously. And like, am I a fraud? Can I really do this? All of those thoughts, that's what muddies the energy, and that's what begins the energetic enmeshment. So if you want to keep those energetic boundaries, set the intention and keep your focus on that person. And so this actually goes with an acronym. It's SAC. So we all need a container for our energy, right? And this container is SAC. SAC, the S is set intentions. A, it's accept what the client is experiencing without judgment. I know it's tough, especially when we can see some of the glaring issues that we want to help them with resolve, right? But we have to accept exactly where they're at. C is to close the session. Allow the session to come to a close energetically. Have a ritual for this. I'll talk you through a few options that you can use to make sure that you're not carrying their energy with you for the next day and feeling depleted for a week. Some people, if they've never had an energy clear, it can get up to a month. And then lastly, keep the intention that all is occurring in their life for the highest and best. So I think we've all seen, as coaches, service providers, healers, practitioners, that God bless them, like we help people, especially when we're doing one-off sessions and we don't have a package with them. We can help people, but then they'll slip back into their own ways, and we'll feel like, did we do a good job? Did we give them the right advice? Did I say something wrong? It's not that you said something wrong. It's that that person needed to go through that experience in order to actually integrate the lesson in a felt sense, in a somatic sense, where they're able to identify, wait a second, I'm feeling that twinge in my gut again. I think that person is trying to take advantage of me in business. And it becomes more nuanced, and they just have that mental shortcut, that heuristics, where they're no longer concerned about, am I making the right decision? And so before we move into the next point and get deep into the details of how to move through creating that energetic container for your clients, I want you to know that this is exactly why I created Soul Centered Success. If you're looking to double your income or simply break through an income ceiling that you've been hitting for 2 to 3 years in a row and increase your cash flow, this is something I walk you through step by step in the program. You can learn more in the description below if you want to check it out. So let's get back to our energetic sack, if you will, our energetic container in order to maintain boundaries. So as we've gone over the setting of intentions and making sure that we are keeping the intentions for the session solely focused on the client. When we accept what they're feeling without judgment, without carrying it, right? Okay, this is tricky for us, especially if you consider yourself empathic, highly sensitive person, clairsentient, any of those, this might be particularly difficult for you, okay? So accepting what they're feeling is simply just letting them go on their own roller coaster while you hold space. So I want you to imagine it as though there is a wave pool that the client is in, right? And their emotions are bringing them up and down. The waves are going up and down, and that is their experience. And you can stand outside of the wave pool, right, with your your lifeguard vest on, and be prepared to jump in if they need you. But otherwise, you are literally holding space, because many people come to service providers, coaches, healers because they don't have this space nor the expertise present in their day-to-day life. They are paying for that from you. So that's why it's so important that you do not take on their energy and take on their karma, because then they do not get the opportunity to learn the lesson. I know a lot of times as healers or coaches, when we see our client feeling down or ashamed, we want to fix it for them. We want to make them feel better. And I think there's a level of that where we can show compassion and understanding. But the other level is to allow them to simply see the full picture of what they're experiencing, how it's affecting their daily lives, and why it's important that it changes. When we don't allow them those experiences and instead sort of dismiss it, oh, it's okay, it'll come in divine timing, and we sweep it under the rug with those phrases, we're not giving them the space to take accountability to change that energetic dynamic. So that is the A piece, that's the acceptance piece. Next, we're going to move into closing. Specifically for Reiki practitioners, a common way to close, of course, we always want to thank the energetic. Oh, sorry, you might be hearing some winds from the storm. I'm recording this at the end of January, so there are some storms that have been popping up, winter storms that have been popping up. So back to closing. If you are a Reiki practitioner, you always want to make sure that you are closing. So you're thanking the guides that you've worked with, your own guides, as well as the guides that you've worked in conjunction with on behalf of that individual or the group. You also want to make sure, and you can do this before a coaching session as well. Any sort of service, healing, practitioner situation, you can do all of these steps to make sure that you're keeping your energy clean and keeping it magnetic. So you want to close. How I always close is by closing the chakras. So I will envision the chakras, the 7 main chakras, starting at the root, and I will close it in a clockwise motion, starting at the root, depending on so here's where common Reiki and I differ. So in traditional Reiki, you would close it based on the gender, and this could be the gender or sex assigned at birth. The right would be female to start at the root, and then you alternate moving up left in the sacral, and so on and so forth. Or, for if you're doing the traditional Reiki sense, you can do that with the left for those who are assigned male at birth. For me, what I do is based on the person's individual energy, because we know if you're deep into this work, then you know that masculine and feminine are not defined by gender. They are energies that you can sense. So you will know which way to start in order to begin closing the chakras, but you do need to alternate. And so you'll do the 7 main chakras, root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown. Okay. And you'll thank them, of course, like I said. And you just make sure that the other person feels complete prior to closing. That's another thing that I'll do. I'll ask them if they feel complete, if they have any remaining questions. And then I stop it. And another big thing that I do want to bring in here is leave time for questions, right? Don't just say, oh, at the end of your hour-long session that they booked you for, do you have any questions? And then stay an extra 10 minutes, especially if you are in that 5-figure stage in your business. Don't do that. Just set aside the time at the end for questions. Give yourself 45 minutes for the actual reading, service, etc. And if you've scheduled 60 in total, give them the last 15 minutes for any questions that they may have. So the K in SAC is keep the intention that all is occurring for their highest and best. So you may see them go through ups and downs afterwards, right? Usually what happens is that they're on a high, 2 weeks to 2 months minimum. They're able to take action. They're not making the same decisions in relationships. They're saying no to things that they don't want to do. They're setting boundaries. They're changing the way that they structure their offer container, or they're finally asking for sales, or they're doing that rebrand that has been on their heart for months now, maybe even years. But then there's a hiccup and they get tempted back into the old energetic dynamics of, hey, well, like, why don't you just do this thing that's always worked for you, even though it doesn't feel right anymore? And so they go back to maybe working for free, or they go back to their old branding, or they don't want to sell. They go back to their own habits. And that's why it's so important that we don't take that on energetically and even into our sense of self-worth. That if somebody has those moments, those ups and downs, the 2 steps forwards, 3 steps back, that we recognize it's simply part of their journey. It is not an indicator of whether or not we have done our job well. So that is my method for you. If you are ready to stop taking on energetic boundaries of your clients, those that you service, those that you provide for, and you're ready to hold support without absorbing their energy, these are the steps. SACK, SAC, create that container for them, right? So S, set intentions. A, accept where they are without judgment. C, close the session. K, keep the intention that all is occurring for their highest and their best. And so just a few tips if you do struggle with detoxing or maintaining a healthy energy regularly, or if you find like it's still a struggle after you apply this method, some great things to do immediately after a session. Of course, walk outside if the weather is forgiving. Unlike this winter storm right now, walk outside barefoot, always a good one. I love a great Epsom salt bath. That's fantastic. Depending on your cultural background, you can use a sage, Palo Santo, some sort of healing, cleansing element that will clear your energetic field. And definitely do something that grounds afterwards. Right now, as this is recording in 2026, we're embarking on a lot of fire energy. So movement is medicine. Make sure you move your body, even if that's a simple walk, even if it's as simple as like dancing or shaking it out in your chair. Do that because that's going to once again help you release the energy. Another great thing to do is actually it's a cleansing technique, once again, from Reiki, where you have a lit flame throughout the session. And when you are done, you clear each side. So from your shoulder, so I've got my right hand. Nope, this is my left. I've got my left hand on my right shoulder and I'm sweeping it down my right arm. And then I do the same thing with my left arm. I repeat that. I do that a total of 3 times. And then I do that with the length of my body, starting at my right shoulder, ending at my left foot. So I cross the body. And then all of this energy is being swept into the flame. I do that with the opposite arm. And then once I do that 3 times, I simply wipe my hands 3 times in the direction of the fire. And for me, I blow. It just feels right for me. I blow that energy into a fire and then I blow the candle out once again, with the intention that this is going to be in that person's highest and best good, and allowing the fire to be a source of alchemy for that person. So these are a few little bonus tips for you if you have some trouble typically grounding your energy. If today's episode resonated with you and you're ready to break through your income ceiling, I invite you to check out Soul Centered Success. It's designed for high achieving women of color entrepreneurs and helps you double your income without risking burnout. You'll find the link in the description, okay? So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.